guess weren't even born when John started covering sports for the Detroit News. John, how you doing, man?
I'm good, although I'm older now that you say that. I was feeling fine until now. Now you bring that up. Yeah, 30 years, crazy.
What's amazing to me though is how young you look. You are the young. And you must hear that all the time.
Yes. Yeah, I do have a baby face.
Yeah, if you can hang on to that as long as you can.
That's the plan. That is the plan.
Because if you were in Hollywood, you could still play 40. Maybe 37. I don't know if you could do like the teen dramas anymore or anything like that, but you could play 30s, late 30s, 40s.
Right. No John Cusack movies for me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing this, and
thanks for having me, guys.
Wanted to talk several different topics, but let's start with the Tigers. And you've been around and covered a lot of different iterations of Detroit sports, and been a columnist since 15 years now there. This Tigers start and run, and really you could go back to the end of last year. But this start sort of legitimizes that wasn't just some – I don't think you can play like that and it be completely a fluke, but I don't think any of us trusted it was going to look like this coming out of the gate. How would you rate how this feels relative to anything you've seen with the Tigers in your time in Detroit? Are we talking 2006? How does it rate?
Yeah, that's probably the closest comp, I think, for most people, because you have that sort of, dark period that lasted, for close to a decade. This time around, it wasn't as long. I mean, it's not as long as it was in 2006 coming out of, what that was. But it is. It's, sort of a generation or a half generation of fans have kind of getting their first taste of it now. You got some younger fans, I think, that are starting to perk up and notice, hey, these Tigers, this is fun. This whole, the scene at the ballpark, but everything around it, sort of the daily, the thing about baseball is it's a daily rush if things are going good. And that's what the Tigers are in right now. And so, yeah, it is. It does remind you of 2006. The difference being, we're not quite there yet. I mean, that team, people forget how great of a start that team got off to. I mean, they were like 40 games over, after 100-some games into the season. And so this isn't there yet, but, man, it sure feels like it night after night, the way they're winning close games, one-run games. And, you've got this young talent, too, that's part of it, and that's a huge boost, I think, for everybody.
How much do you trust that this is going to last?
Yeah, I think, to your point, I wondered the same thing after last year. Like, okay, how much of this is repeatable? I mean, you see Riley Green, you think he's an all-star. Yes, he is an all-star. But some of the other things you started to, you wondered, who the pitching, they got there in part by just sheer force of will from A.J. Hinch, the pitching chaos that, became sort of the catchphrase, that last month and a half of the season with bullpen game after bullpen game. And this isn't that. And actually the bullpen games, they've tried a couple of them here in the last week and they haven't gone great. Today's another one in St. Louis before they head home. But no, now you're starting, Scooble is the real deal. He's the best pitcher in baseball, if you ask me. And Riley Green is an all-star from now until who knows when. So those are the mainstays, but then you see these other pieces start to rise up around them. And Kerry Carpenter is legit. He is a power hitter up there with the best when it comes to hitting, one side of the plate at least. And you start to see some of these other guys day in and day out, and you're like, okay, no, this is legit. And then they went out and added some pieces that, Gleyber Torres didn't turn a lot of heads probably, and I know Tigers fans were obsessed with Alex Bregman, but Gleyber Torres was the perfect addition to the top of this lineup because he is such a professional as a hitter, and he's been pretty decent in the field too. So you start to see all those other little incremental growth from some of the young guys around those core pieces that you knew, and you start to see, okay, this is legit. This is one of the best starting rotations. There's no fluke about what they've done so far this season. They're one of the top 5 offenses, top 5 defenses, or top 5 pitching staffs, and the bullpen, for all of our nitpicking here in the last few weeks, is still really one of the best as well. So it does seem sustainable, and they're in a division now. They're 6 games up here, heading home after today probably. It's one of the better divisions in baseball, too, based on the standings.
That's what's remarkable. I mean, in another year, they'd be running away with this division by 15 games at this point.
And the flip side of it too is the Twins won 13 games in a row and turned around, and they were still 4 or 4.5, 5 games behind the Tigers. That's how good all these teams have been. And it's not just beating up on the White Sox either. I mean, that's certainly part of it, but that's true in the NL West too, where they're all beating up on the Colorado Rockies. These teams are, they've got a 32-16 right. I was just doing the math here, writing something for tomorrow, but they're 32-16 against AL East. This is not, just beating up on the White Sox for the Guardians and the Tigers and the Twins and the Royals. So anyway, it is legit. And now we're in the middle of a stretch here where they're playing a bunch of series against teams that are all 500 or better.
Yeah.
And so, that was sort of my next question, here a week or a little more ago, wondering, okay, so how are they going to, the Red Sox come to town, the Rangers, then, and, they sweep the Red Sox in dramatic fashion, and, they go to St. Louis, bounce back from a dud, and win a game last night with Skubal on the mound. So you can see this team's not going anywhere. They're going to be in it till the end. Whether they win the division or not, they're going to be in it till the end.
Yeah, no, the Javy Baez story. And you wrote about this recently. It was a good piece. And I don't think anybody saw this coming. I thought he was done. I thought there was a chance he wouldn't. Yeah. They'd have to find a way to cut ties with him. And now you watch how fluid he is in the outfield. Even on Tuesday night, they have a game that, and I think this is one of the big differences between the Tigers of the past and now a game that looks like the momentum's getting away from them in St. Louis, and they find a way to win 5-4. But part of that is just a really smooth play in center field by Baez, who just looks like, and I know he grew up playing the position, but it looks like a natural fit for it. And obviously they'll move him around as Parker Meadows comes back and have to figure things out. But his story, it's one of the more, Torkelson's remarkable, Mize is to some degree, but Baez to me may be the most remarkable of all of them.
It is pretty wild, though. You just mentioned it. They have 3 of essentially the top 4 candidates for AL or for comeback player of the year, which is how you get to be the best record in baseball, I guess. But but Baez to me so far is tops the list, and because you're right. This was a guy who was literally getting booed almost every at bat, by the end of last summer, before he goes in, and then he goes and has hip surgery, and you're not even sure if maybe that's the end of his career or something like that. You don't know exactly what's going on with the actual injury and things, but he looked rejuvenated when he returned this spring, and then you see him just on a day-to-day basis, and he looks like he's playing with a freedom that he didn't have for the last few years. That's physical, but it's also mental. And, credit to A.J. Hinch and credit to Scott Harris and the staff for, not just throwing in the towel on it. I know fans get upset about Chris Ilitch and, they're not going to, DFA him, because of the salary and because of the $73 million that's still owed or whatever. And I get all that, but this is also the reason why you don't give up on a player who's, was an all-star, was a Gold Glove shortstop. It's just, there's still something in there. You hope you can pull it back out. And the fact that they have and the fact that he has, it is amazing. Now, he's one of those 3 that we're talking about, Mize and Baez, Torkelson. I guess you have to think, based on the underlying numbers, that Baez's, success at the plate is maybe not quite going to last.
Right.
That's the one thing I do wonder about. Some of this is, you look at some of these hits and at-bats and you start to wonder, okay, well, at some point this is going to turn the corner. But we'll see. But nonetheless, like you said, the fact that he goes from shortstop to playing elite center field speaks to the player, it speaks to the athlete, and it does speak to the value of just sort of hanging on and staying patient with some of these guys.
Well, and and he got good at the time. Well, first of all, I think them being good helps him because it moves him down the lineup a little bit. And I don't think he was good enough to be the number 3 hitter. But to your point, if Parker Meadows doesn't get hurt in spring training with this weird nerve injury on his arm,
Baez doesn't get a chance to play every day or even close to every day or maybe at all, and probably doesn't have the time to sort of find this game that he's rediscovered. So, no, it will be interesting. I assume he's going to go back to third and then maybe platooning at shortstop, but whenever Meadows comes back here in a couple weeks probably. But it is, you do wonder like how that will affect him because he does seem to be playing like a kid again in center field.
Yeah, he's got some swagger. You had a great line in your piece about him, which about his negative WAR, which effectively meant the Tigers were paying a player $25 million to cost them wins.
Yeah.
And I mean it's remarkable.
Yeah, no, and that's like people get upset about WAR and some of these metrics that they don't understand, but that's what it means. I mean, that's what we're trying to gauge here is like the value of a player in the field. But you look at the Tigers. I haven't looked in a few days. As of like Saturday or Sunday, the top 4 players in WAR for the Tigers, obviously Skubal's at the top of the list. The next 3 were McKinstry, Baez, Torkelson. And if you had that parlay card back in February or March, I hope you took it and cashed it because that speaks to how you go from a team that you think is on the rise to a team that's suddenly arguably the best in baseball.
It's really remarkable. If you told me one of those stories you would sign up. You'd say, all right, you take any one of those would have been a big plus, and you maybe have to cut bait with the others. I want to talk a little bit of Lions with you. It's interesting. The schedule comes out the other day, and the responses are
everybody panicked.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I do think that you still see the ingrained scars of all this losing that in sort of where the Lions are is it. I mean, other franchises are looking at playing the Lions as no picnic and not a game that's great. And we went through the other day on the show, and Jason, my co-host here, was much more optimistic. I think he came up with 12, 13 wins, maybe too optimistic, but he just thought relative to most of these teams, even though some of these are good teams, the Lions are better. And I don't know if they are or not, but it is interesting how we look at the schedule now and whether the schedule the way it is actually something that's daunting or just that's fine. They're really good, so who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the deal in the NFL. It's why the NFL is prints money partly because parity is the aim of the game, and you get a first place schedule, and this is what it looks like in the Lions case. The flip side of that schedule, and it is a very tough schedule. I mean, you look at the road schedule in particular, and all those teams. Very few of them feel like they're teams that are going to fall off by the wayside this year or anything like that, where it's going to look worse than it is until it arrives. But the flip side is, and people have started to take note of it, I think, is they did them favors. They certainly did them no favors playing on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and all the primetime games aren't easy for a coaching staff to deal with. But the flip side of it is they get rest, sort of an inordinate amount of rest compared to their opponents on this schedule. And so people don't pay much attention to that, but I think 5 times they play a team coming off a Monday night game on Sunday. So they'll have an extra day of rest 5 times over, opponents. And it's some of those tough games people are pointing to on the schedule, where they do have that advantage. I think overall they have a record number of rest days compared to their opponents this season. So there is that, which is important. There's also the fact that the bye, and this was probably their top request, I think, of the league. Teams sort of make requests and hey, can you avoid this or can we do this with our schedule? And for the Lions, I know it was a mid-season bye. It was something they really wanted. And last year they felt the sting of having the earliest bye possible, and then 13 straight weeks of games with all the injuries that were piling up on them became sort of untenable. So they do have the mid-season bye. They have that extra rest on some of those days in the schedule. But the bottom line is, when you're coming off a 15-2 season, you're going to have a tough schedule. And like you said, they are a 15-2 team from last season. So all of these other teams are looking at the Lions in that way and saying, man, that game, the game is circled, but it's also a game that, some of these other teams are thinking, man, I don't know if we can win that one. So we'll see. to me, the question is okay, how quickly with new coordinators, how quickly out of the gate can they, because they really do need to start fast with the schedule they have. And so the question is John Morton as a new coordinator, does Kelvin Shepard as a newly promoted coordinator, how fast can they get their system, their schemes, and everything organized and in place to start winning right out of the gate?
Yeah, because that stuff's underrated. You see teams struggle with it. Jared Goff has been in a really comfortable place. I do want
And I still think he will. And I mean, John Morton helped design this offense with Ben Johnson here a few years ago. And so I think all those things, they are going to have, plenty of time to get comfortable with each other. And certainly Kelvin Shepard has been there with all these guys for the past few years. But the bottom line is Dan Campbell had the benefit of continuity with all three coordinators for his entire tenure. And now he's got two new ones, new, quote unquote, new ones this year. And that's a change. That's something different. And it probably puts some more pressure on Dan Campbell as well to make sure everything is working, without glitches right out of the gate.
Yeah, and you wrote a nice piece on Kelvin Shepard recently that people can read at DetroitNews.com or DeepNews.com. And do you think, I look at this stretch and I see the Lions is, at least for the next 2 years before it gets really expensive. And there may be windows beyond that, but this iteration of the Lions maybe has 2 years. But I don't see many teams around the NFL that I would rather be than the Lions for the next 2 years. Maybe always the Chiefs because of Mahomes, and maybe there's somebody else. Yeah. Is there anybody you would rather be other than maybe the Chiefs than the Lions for the next 2 seasons?
No, I mean, you could point to, the Eagles, obviously the defending champs, and they've got a quarterback in place and some they've drafted well with some young guys, particularly on defense. But no is the short answer, because all these other teams are either facing a quarterback decision looming or don't have. I mean, nobody's drafted as well as the Lions have in the last 3-4 years. It's obvious in the Pro Bowl honors and All Pro honors they've already racked up to these young guys. And as you said, yes, the bill comes due on some of these guys, but it's still staggered enough, and the NFL is. The salary cap is what it is, but it is pliable. It is also rising rapidly each year. And so it's doable. And so, yes, at some point he may have to decide, Brad Holmes, the GM, may have to decide, I can't pay Jameson Williams $30 million a year, so we're going to have to let him go. But that's still 2-3 years down the line with franchise tags and everything else. And so, I think there is a window here. It's always based on the quarterback, and in the Lions' case, they have Jared Goff, who's still in his prime, is coming off his best season, and showing no signs that that's going to suddenly fall off a cliff. And so I think you've got that with the skill position talent that's around him. The offense should be arguably the best in the league for another 2-3 years. And if Brad Holmes keeps drafting as well as he had, we'll see. But that's what makes things sustainable is the GM and the ability to draft and develop players. So I don't see it ending anytime soon. I mean, their division is getting tougher, and so that's part of going back to the original question. We'll see what Ben Johnson does in Chicago, but Green Bay's still in a pretty good spot, a pretty enviable spot with a really young team and a quarterback who you think can be a guy. And the Vikings sort of are in that. We're waiting to see how they adjust to a new quarterback and everything else. But I think that's the question to me is, can they stay on top of their own division here for the next few years?
John, I appreciate it, man. I didn't even hear your driveway getting destroyed, which you said was happening today, which was disappointing.
I'm in a parking lot here, yeah. And I think the rain, I do wonder if this rain, I don't think the rain's going to linger for Tigers and Guardians the next 4 days, but it's not baseball weather right now, and this needs to stop. But it also needs to stop so they can tear up my driveway and start pouring a new one. Which, speaking of I've been in this house for 20 plus years, and we've been putting this off for 20 plus years, so it had to happen.
I am somebody who appreciates procrastination, and look, a crumbling driveway builds character. So there's that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
John, I appreciate you, man. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We'll see you soon, man. All right.
That's John Niyo from the Detroit News. Some good stuff there. Anything you take away from either of those discussions, Tigers, Lions?
I was about to say, what are they paying you guys if he's having his driveway torn up? I know what some of that stuff costs, but if you've been there for 20 years, that's
sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't wait any longer.
And by the way, the opening of our show, I guess I should reiterate because there was no audio at the beginning. I guess that's
just for YouTube.
That's on YouTube for the YouTube listeners. So that was my apologies to the YouTube listeners there. But we did talk about how our guests we've had on, not just John, but Sean Windsor, who apparently has a jail story. So we'll have to get that from him whenever he's available for our next Wednesday interview, because I find that fascinating.
Well, if Sean Windsor's been to prison and I haven't heard about it on the road.
Well, they said jail. I know that you guys that haven't been there, even though you've skated the law from some of your shenanigans, but you get those confused. The prison and jail, there is a vast difference, and I can tell you. Actually, I really can't because I've never been to prison, but I guarantee you it probably blows.
It does, yeah. No, when I listen to John, I do think that we react to the Lions schedule like we reacted 5 years ago about the Lions. I think people still struggle.
But there's just so many unknowns at the time.
Yeah.
When you see the schedule and you don't know the injuries that are going to happen, but does that change hearing that? Because I did see Warren Sharp did post that about the rest advantage in 8 games this year. I guess that obviously it can't hurt, right, to have rest advantages. But does it change a lot of the 10-win, 9-win people out there?
I would say that the big thing is for the Lions isn't even about the wins. It's about getting to the playoffs as healthy as can be, and at least more healthy than last year, right, defensively. And so if rest is a part of that, I think it's every advantage you can get. I think is important.
Right, but is it now that you know that? We didn't know that when we were going through the schedule the other day. Maybe many people didn't know. Does that change your feelings about the Lions? Taking your calls coming up here. Seriously, though, does it change your feeling about it? Because I just hate overreacting. I understand having trepidation, but we are a good football team. We have to remind ourselves we have won 27 games in 2 years, and I understand that we're changing defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, but Dan Campbell's going to get his guys. Morton, like John said, is a guy that Ben Johnson knew, and they constructed this offense. And honestly, Dan Campbell isn't a dumb guy, as many people think that he is. I mean, Dan knows a lot about the offense as well. So I don't know.
No, I think I don't have any questions about what the Lions will be for the next 2 years if they're healthy, right? I mean, obviously you can have some freak thing that happens to Jared Goff, and that's to any team. Any team loses their starting quarterback, season's going away.
A lot of these guys, yeah.
But I just think,
with all the injuries we had, we still won 15 games.
But the test that what will make Brad Holmes has a chance to be a legend times 2 in Detroit, maybe times 3. We'll see.
Ooh.
What I mean by that
3
is
times a legend.
He built a roster unlike anything you or I have ever seen in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
And so if they win so he's already done that. If they win a Super Bowl, that's a statue, right? Okay.
There's going to be a lot of statues.
A lot of statues. Field, if they win a Super Bowl, it would just be all
everybody
statues.
Gets a statue.
Yeah. There'd be nothing else but statues. But if then he's able to sustain it, and look, there will be some painful losses, and that's how they build parity in the NFL, right? They put a cap. It's not the hard cap of the NHL or anything, but they put you can't keep everybody, And my frustration in any sport, I always think is, I think teams in any sport should be rewarded for drafting well. And if you have a homegrown player, somehow that shouldn't count against the cap beyond a perfect amount.
Yeah.
But that's not the reality.
We've talked about that, though. But do we overvalue that? I mean, I just think we have $42 million now, effectively, in cap space. And I know we haven't had to pay. I don't know who we've paid that,
Well, there's
who's coming up and all that stuff. I don't really,
Right.
But I just feel if we have $42 million kind of a buffer, why are we worried so much about down the line when we should just be wanting to win?
And you focus on trying to win the next 2 years. And because here's the thing. We will all enjoy the dance that Brad Holmes is trying to do if they've won a Super Bowl. If they've won a Super Bowl and now the bill comes due and it's like, okay, you've got to make some hard decisions, but you got some young guys you've continued to draft well, and you look at a defense or an offense, you go, boy, that would have been nice if they still had that guy. That's okay. That's part of the dance, and everybody will appreciate them trying to do it if they've won a Super Bowl.
But the difference is from past years is that actually players that want to be here. We have an organization that people want to come and play for, a guy, a general manager that people that respect, a coach that guys respect. We haven't had that before, where we've had people that we've had to overpay for guys to come in, and we've won 12, 13 games, and we've drafted decent. When you're drafting top 10, it's pretty hard not to, you're going to fall on a Hall of Famer here once in a while, like a guy like Calvin Johnson, Stafford. But when you have an organization, it goes for the Tigers as well. A lot of people want to play for A.J. Hinch. A lot of people come into the organization, and they all of a sudden want to play better.
Well, I wonder I know Comerica Park's not always the most hitter-friendly park, but I wonder with Bregman, and he's having a good year and he's in a good spot in Boston. But, the Tigers have to be a place now that, for example, come this trade deadline, if they do want to go, add whatever, they are going to be a much more appealing place for somebody to join than they were previously. And people
but you can't blame Bregman for wanting to go to the Red Sox either.
I cannot.
Especially when they're going to pay him what they paid him. And
like goes with the Lions, they've got to win the Super Bowl. Otherwise, you wind up in the situation like with the Tigers of the previous iteration where they got there a couple of times and didn't. And there's this sense of, man, they didn't get it done. And even with the Pistons, the previous iteration of the Pistons that won a title in 2004, but you still, if they had won 2 titles, that would have felt a lot better if they hadn't blown it to San Antonio in 2005. If that group had gotten 2, it would have felt like, that really was an era.
But the Pistons were in the Eastern Conference Finals
7 straight years, 6 straight years.
Right. That was enough to get the one championship there. I really don't look back and go, oh man, one miss there. But definitely with the Lions. But I just think it's sustainable, and we always worry about the cap and what's going to happen when we have to sign these guys. And it's like, well, we don't have to worry about J-Mo for another couple years, sure. And it's like, well, if J-Mo leaves, so what? But then I watch one of his highlights against the Packers when he just separates, burning through the secondary, and I go, God, I would miss that guy though.
100%, and eventually, and he's the type of guy you can't.
But would you pay him $30 million? I don't think I could.
Not if you're paying St. Brown, because you can't pay 2 receivers like that. Like what a great example, and I think any fan base can watch what happens to the Bengals this year, and the Lions play the Bengals, but the Bengals have chosen to go all in on 2 wideouts and a quarterback and their top skill guys when they've got some other issues, and maybe it'll prove that the Burrow and those wideouts are good enough, but I think that's a problem.
But as long as you can protect Burrow, you can get an offensive line that can. That's scary. I understand that. Yeah. But it's you have a guy like Higgins and Jamar Chase, though. You have to pay those guys.
Do you?
Hell yeah.
I'd rather pay
a guy like Burrow. I'm with you, but you would try to hope that you can kind of piecemeal together an offensive line.
I would draft a receiver and pay a left tackle. Is what I would do.
I'm with you. I love the offensive line.
Yeah. I would go
offense and defensive line is where I would draft. I love it. But when you have those 2 guys, what are you going to do?
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, a little discussion on some MSU football to close out the show. Couch in the Roof, our Wednesday show, presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar, just north of Frandor on East Saginaw in Lansing.
Firekeeper's Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask and Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with 1 awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask and Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a muskox flannel by ordering at gomuskox.com, where Couch and the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, our friends at Groovy Donuts are your answer. Experience the Groovy Donuts difference for yourself on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston. Get more information or place an order at groovydonuts.com. If you're looking for a relaxed vibe, great food, and an outstanding beer selection, Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing is your place. Enjoy their famed chicken and waffle fries, fish and chips, or any of their delicious burgers or salads. Midtown Brewing Company also offers 40-plus beers on tap, including ciders and seasonal offerings and daily happy hour specials. The spacious and cozy vibe makes Midtown Brewing Company a perfect place for a beer with a friend, a work lunch, or to watch the games on its big screen TVs. If you'd rather eat at home, Midtown Brewing Company offers a terrific carryout menu and free delivery on orders of $20 or more. Visit MidtownBrewingCompany.net or stop by 402 South Washington in downtown Lansing for the Midtown Brewing Company experience.
Find Couch and the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got.
Couch and the Rube, our Wednesday show presented by our friends at Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar, a place that Norm from Cheers would have absolutely loved.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for get away for a Tigers game middle of the afternoon, or you don't have tickets on Memorial Day weekend, Front 43 and Cask and Company, a great place to dip in, watch a game. You can do it with a dinner date, whatever you might want to do. The NFL on Sunday is just, I'm telling you, it is a great place. The setup there, the Front 43 side, I love that bar setup. And on Cask and Company as well. And I always say, if you're on a date at Front 43 and Cask and Company, it's a good place you can position your date just perfectly so it looks like you're listening to them, but you got a TV just over the shoulder to keep tabs on whatever you're watching. It also doesn't overwhelm you, though. On the Cask and Company side, if you want a really cool, romantic, fun date, it's not like it's not like going to B-dubs or some shit like that. Like, this is no offense to B-dubs, but all right. And again, reservations at caskandcompany.com.
Is that your tribute to Norm?
That's my tribute to Norm.
Would you be happy if when you walked in to Front 43 and Cask and Company, they were like, Graham?
Yes.
And you had your own spot. I got to say, someone posted on Twitter, and I reposted it, about they had every one of Norm's entrances on Cheers. Yeah. And I sat there for 19 minutes watching every single one. And I was like, man, I think I need to watch some Cheers episodes.
No, it's George Wendt, by the way. He's the character. He was great on SNL.
But he's known for Norm and
yes.
the
great
SNL sketches.
Yeah. And just fantastic. In the final scene, weirdly, I was a weird 13-year-old. Not surprisingly.
No way.
Yeah. So I have a tape in my basement, and I taped it has on it. And you know how you could do the long play where you get 6 hours on one tape? On the same tape, I have the finale of Cheers on VHS.
Wow.
The
porn.
First episode of Saved by the Bell, the college years, which was right around then. Michael Jordan's 55-point game against Phoenix in the 93 finals.
How long is this tape?
It's 6 hours. And then there's something else on it. But those three things are definitely on one tape. Isn't that amazing?
Damn, and you still have it.
Yeah, it's in the basement. Yeah, my wife does not love that I have these tapes in the basement. I won't even get rid of
But what
the
are they
VCR.
taking up room for?
Right, exactly. That's what I said.
Do you guys have a furnished basement?
No.
Who cares? What isn't the basement to put shit down there if it's not furnished? I think she just hates anything that you enjoy. Sounds like.
No, I think there is some extra stuff. I am somebody who struggles to throw certain things away.
Now the truth comes out.
But this particular thing is
a pack rat.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but it's I might need that. Don't I want to watch the Cheers finale sometimes? Not that you could stream it if you really want to fight. Anyway,
it's like when Rico told me he had a "He Hate Me" mini football helmet autographed in his basement. Still, I'm like, Jesus.
I actually like.
You're really?
That's
what would
cool.
you do with it? Though?
I don't know. It's kind of fun from the.
Does it make you happy when you see it? That's what I do. I like to keep things around that make me happy or smile. But I mean, if I saw that, I'd be like, oh, geez, it's probably time to get rid of that.
I definitely need to take another swing in the basement and get rid of some things. But the problem is she's put most of my stuff down there at this point, and so it doesn't really. And
Along
usually,
with your TV or / monitors.
usually it just disappears over time. I think when I don't ask about it, all of a sudden I'm like, what happened to that? Do we not have that anymore? And I do have bad taste, so it's in her defense. It's all
Really proving her point here. I guess.
It's all fair. In college. It's funny how certain shows of like I grew up in the era of when I was early in middle school, like Cheers was on, right? That was the bar show that I first sort of associated with.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was what was I?
Frasier.
Oh no, Friends. Friends started when I was like a freshman in high school, like 94. So that's how I pictured like living on your own in New York, some giant apartment. I'm like, this would be amazing. I want to do this. And I went to Columbia College in Chicago. I think, in part, I'm guessing my desire to live in a big city over in college was probably created by watching Friends and thinking that's what life would be like in the city, And we did live in a big converted loft. There was a old metal press building that was great. I'm not saying it wasn't, but it wasn't quite.
Couch. Did you do the clap?
So,
oh man, have you rewatched this show?
Friends? It's every once in a while. I like Friends because I've seen every episode.
Yeah,
I like it on Nick at Night late when I'm working because it's on at like 1 a.m. and I don't really have to pay attention, but every once in a while, and so I can write and I can have it on low and just every once in a while I see a funny episode or a funny scene that I like and I turn it up or whatever.
So while you're working, then you just like out of nowhere giggle.
Yes. So that's
wow.
It's a good show. But I remember in college. There was a bar near where we were living our senior year up Diversey in Pine Grove that you had to go down a basement steps too, kind of like Cheers. And when we first moved in there, I was like, this is going to be our Cheers. They're going to know us here. Like they cared about a bunch of 21-year-old, 22-year-olds walking. They didn't have any money walking down there once in a while.
Trying to start traditions that aren't happening.
Yeah, we wound up going like 3 times in the course of the year we were there. We didn't wind up loving it. But it was to me, it was an influence of Cheers and Norm and all that. Back then, I'll see what I can do with Front 4. It just, I don't think they're going to do that.
That'd be awesome though if you could walk in there.
Amazing.
But you have to go in almost every day because that's kind of what the bit of Norm was.
Yeah, you have to be known by. There have been bars in my life where I've been there frequently enough. There's this place in Kalamazoo called Harvey's on the mall that I spent like $4,000 at in 2008. And.
Right, because this is a TV show. It can get depressing being the Norm character.
Oh.
I've been the Norm character without all the admiration or like going to the liquor store and the person knows your face because you go in there every day. It's not a great thing sometimes. But
I used to love over-tipping. Like 2008, I'm like 28. First time in my life I have disposable income, nothing really, very few responsibilities in life. And I tipped, I would say on average, 100%.
Wow.
Maybe at least 75%. And so there were two.
Were you trying to get laid or?
No, what I loved this. On Monday nights especially, and maybe Saturday nights, but Monday nights were different bars in the city of Kalamazoo had like their special night where they had some sort of, drink special, so they were always packed. And Monday nights wound up being packed there a lot. And I could walk up to the bar with a line 4 deep all around the bar in front of me. And Anna or Nadia would see me. They'd grab a Newcastle, which was my beer of choice back then, and they'd pass it to me. And I wouldn't even have, like, I got my beer first before 4 deep rows, 20 people in front of me.
Oh.
And I loved that feeling, and I was willing to pay for that feeling. And so I did.
You know who didn't like that?
Who's that?
Everyone behind you.
100%.
You probably had your derby hat on with your Oakley wraparounds behind your head.
But if they should have been paying $110 on a $55 tab every night, and they would have had the same thing I was. Didn't beginning of bad financial decisions.
The beer over to you, yeah.
Yeah, they just started to reach out. Yeah, it was. Yeah, so that's what I loved. It wasn't anything else but that.
And everybody behind you was like,
he's got a stupid looking face.
Oh,
yep.
Fuck that guy.
Yep.
Who's that guy next to him? Is that Russ Eisenstein? Fuck that guy too.
100%. All right.
What are we talking about now?
So there's
right.
an MSU football story. Emerged recruiting story yesterday.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for all of that.
Corey Amakri, who is a big-time running back at Hazlitt High School here in Lansing.
Really?
Near where Jonathan Smith lives. I mean, in Michigan State's backyard. Michigan State was in on him, 4-star, 3-star kid, depending on the service. Good player, right? And he's supposed to announce his decision, I think, Friday at 3. But it's come out that it appears he's going to choose Kansas over Michigan State. And he may have a family tie there. He may have, whatever. But the response online was, it led me, a lot of Michigan State fans are emotional basket cases right now. It is unbelievable. The amount of people that are just losing their absolute shit because they'd lose a kid who's in their backyard and they lose him to Kansas of all places.
Was it at Fawcett Liquor again? Is he going nuts on Twitter?
No. This isn't just everybody who's got, the word SZN in their name, like so-and-so season, which is drives me nuts.
Hot lad summer season.
Yeah. But this is like, people that are reputable, people have their own podcasts, this is a lot of people. Look, okay, let's remind ourselves of this. Number one, we are talking about a high school recruit in May, 7 months from signing day in the portal era.
You got to get in there early, though, Graham.
What I'm saying is, I thought we were past this. I thought we were more mature than this. None of that matters. I get the recruiting services have to make money. You should not be reading any of this shit this time of year. I'm sorry. We got to be past this because, again, the odds that somebody will actually sign there, and then play there, are slim. Right? That's the way it works. Think about this fall. MSU might look good. Kansas could look like crap. The juice swings the other way, and this kid winds up at MSU, or he doesn't, or he wanted to go somewhere else away from home, like a lot of kids in East Lansing do, who grow up with MSU on their doorstep. It's just not that big a deal. It's not, and it's never a big deal 7 months from signing day for a freshman, ever again. It's not in the portal era. You have to get away from that. You have to do it. The thing is, nothing is going to change for Michigan State until something good happens on the field for Michigan State. When something good happens on the field, all of a sudden you might see some momentum in recruiting. And obviously there's resource allocation that has to go along with that. But people just need to grow up a little bit. And I'm not telling you how to feel.
But Kansas, I think if you went somewhere else, I think people would be like, oh, I guess we're playing with the big boys at least. I think the Kansas thing also.
But if he's that good a player, then the big boys lost out on him to Kansas. I don't. Yeah. Kansas has been winning, been doing okay. I mean, they weren't great last year. The year before, they were pretty good. I know their coach was interested in the Michigan State job 2 years ago when Jonathan Smith got it. I just don't let your mood be affected by people with the word season in the bio, right? And don't let
anyone affect you on Twitter. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, you
shouldn't really do that.
You have to let season 2 of the Jonathan Smith era of Michigan State football play out. You should let revenue sharing and the new AD and donor relationships play out. Stop shitting on the coach who might be as good as anyone you'll get at MSU. And certainly, if he gets driven out without getting a fair shot, that won't be on him. Number one, it'll question whether they can get somebody of any caliber in here after him.
Well, it'll mean college football's ruined. College sports are ruined.
I'll say but
that's just where we're at, though.
If Jonathan Smith fails before he gets a legitimate chance, it'll be on the administration, it'll be on the donors, it'll be on the fans at least as much as him.
They'll get paid to go away, I guess.
This is a school that, before D'Antonio, used to pull each other apart, right? There's been so much strife between the administration and coaches and all sorts of shit over time. That's what this feels like. And fans are part of what sets the tone here. And just be aware of that. I mean, and look, fans are ass everywhere. There's a guy and no offense to our listeners because most of you are fans, but what I mean is, there's a guy, Trent Alexander, who plays for Liverpool, who's leaving Liverpool, his boyhood club. He's been there for like a decade. He's won a lot of stuff with him.
Championships?
And he's going to Real Madrid. His contract's up. He's 26. He has the right to do it. And he's getting booed at home games. And it's hurting the way, all of that time he put in, all those good vibes, all that good energy is being lost to the immaturity of a fan base who feels hurt because a professional is leaving them, to go somewhere. I mean,
well, it does suck if you're a fan.
It sucks, but he still did great things. It sucks, but MSU fans are definitely setting a vibe now that is feeding on itself. I don't think it helps. If I were, and I understand lots of fan bases are like this, but if I were a recruit and I'm on social media and I look at the MSU fan base, it ain't just that there's not a lot of juice in MSU's football program. It's you got a toxic fan base that looks like a pain in the ass to deal with. I wouldn't want to deal with it.
But is it only toxic because you pay attention to it? Like, I feel like every fan base that has a football program worth anything has the same kind of fan base if you look and dive deep into it and follow it.
Probably.
And if you cover that team, you're going to be like, wow, this fan base is just as bad as the one I just left that I covered. I just think everybody is shit, no matter from the fan base or whatever, and you give them so much time in between, and it's just a wild, wild west scenario. I think people are just, especially in a, where you can conceal your identity. I just fire off my takes. I'm bored. The season isn't for another 100 effing days. So
no, that's the problem.
That's what I mean. So
you got all this time,
but I think it's guys like you that are paying attention to it, and then come on here and then go, oh, this is the fan base is rotting from the inside out. Where I think a lot of people have level heads and probably look at that and go, I don't want to be any part of that.
Here's the thing, you learn who not to pay attention to, and there are some people you just ignore. There are also some tone setters on social media for the MSU fan base who are reacting this way.
Matt C.
There's some, guys like Sheehan, Matt Sheehan, who look, Sheehan's got to create content all the time around. He's an emotional fan, and he does not hide
it every day.
He does not hide that, and he does not pretend to be something he's not. And I respect him for that. But what I would say is, if you want Michigan State football to be great, if that is your goal, if that is your dream, get on board with Jonathan Smith and give him a chance. If it's time to jump off at a certain point, it won't be because some 17-year-old after his first season, who's a modest recruit, chose another school 8 months before signing day. It'll happen on the field, and everybody will kind of know it. And if it's not going to happen at Michigan State for him, but you got to let him. You got to buy in. You got to give the guy a chance to make it. But
you can understand if there is some trepidation, though, with what happened last year. He's not really an MSU guy, and a lot of fans are just, there's no tie to him yet.
I'm not saying he doesn't have to prove it. I'm not saying he doesn't have, that there can't be reasons for a little bit of anxiety. I'm not saying there can't be concern. I'm not saying none of that, but that doesn't
just don't go to Twitter with it.
Just keep your support.
Well, what fun is that?
Well, okay, but again, don't complain. If like. You're sort of fulfilling your own destiny here a little bit with the way and there's woe is me and oh my God, and it takes 175-yard run or a win at USC for the juice to change considerably, and it just doesn't. And recruits who commit in June and May just don't matter. And I'm sorry for those high school kids, but because it's not actually a commitment, because so many of them don't stick around, because the transfer portal exists, they have lost that. Like this kid's having a signing day ceremony. WLNS is streaming it live. Probably other people will probably be there. He does not deserve that. And it's not on him, but it's all his peers have created a system where you you committing or pledging anywhere does not matter. It is irrelevant. It is not news on its own. It is not news because it's only news if more of you actually stick to that commitment, if more of you don't start taking further visits, if more of you actually sign where you're going to go, and then sign and then go to a place and stick it out and actually play there. Until that starts happening again, and it's not, then your signing day announcement does not matter at all. It is not news. You can do it. You can on social media. People can get excited about it, whatever they want to do. But, like, if he was committing to MSU, I would say the same thing. Like, it just, you don't know that, like, MSU could have a bad season and then somewhere else could have a good season. And he could get, look what happened last year with the running back from East Lansing, went to Alabama, and then he comes back. Like they lose him and they get him. Shit changes so much right now. Just,
So you're telling Channel 6 to not cover stuff like that.
Well, you got to cover local news. You got to fill content. But historically, it's sort of like the Lions schedule. It's sort of like the Tigers believing it's real. You in those situations, you're scarred by the past. In this situation, you've always done it a certain way. But this is no longer news. It is not news. It just isn't. And it's news on signing day to a degree, less than it used to be, but it's news now when you get close into November and December where kids are going to go because they're probably going to, when they actually put pen to paper.
But maybe it is news to some people, and some people may actually make some sort of monetary thing out of it. So could you just ignore it if those people enjoy it? Right? Like if I don't really get into the recruiting thing at all whatsoever, but I don't really care.
There's nothing wrong with enjoying it, but just understand that it's irrelevant. So if you can enjoy it, you can say this is fun, but don't get mad if he doesn't wind up in MSU, or if this kid does. If you're a Kansas fan, he doesn't wind up at Kansas, because it's who the hell knows? It's a crapshoot, and there's not an actual commitment being made. Now maybe this kid is different. Again, the problem is it's a boy who cried wolf situation at this point. He doesn't get that honor. He doesn't get that chance. He doesn't get that. Because so many before him have done it differently, and that's just the way it is, especially in football. Basketball is a little different because more often than not, recruits who pledge somewhere wind up there, and even if they transfer soon after, they're more impactful early. It's just different. Basketball still has a little zest to the recruiting game, but just stop giving it attention and stop panicking. On MSU, nothing is going to happen that's going to please you about MSU football between now and the beginning of the season. Nothing is going to make you happy.
Nothing?
No, there's nothing that can happen.
Not one thing?
Because
5-star?
But that kid's likely to go somewhere else too.
Oh.
And so, and if there's a good practice story, you don't know either. I mean, it's like, okay, the kid looked good in practice. Well, we don't see practice. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe that's BS, maybe it's not. You're not going to have anything to truly feel good about that's tangible until the season starts. But let it happen. Let year 2 happen before you freak out, before everything's let a coach and try to develop some juice. And then if you're the administration and if you're the donor base and you're the fan base and you're not all in and you're not making this easy, then part of this is on you.
So what if I let year 2 happen?
Yep.
Jonathan Smith wins 6 games. I wait patiently. I don't say a word.
Yeah.
And he wins 6 games. And then can I let loose after that? After I see that?
Well, it depends.
Or do I got to give him a third year? Then you're going to tell me I got to give him a third year.
Well, it depends what 6 games looks like. Yeah, but you're right. I think we'll know it when we see it. If you could have a 6-win year where there's some injuries that lead to a couple losses, where they beat Michigan, where they're going to a bowl game, and it feels like progress is being made, and everybody sort of agrees on that, and there's a little bit of something behind the program. You could have a 6-win season where it doesn't feel like there's anything behind the program, and I think, and again, in the old days, and this is different than the old days because you got to win the portal now these days. In the old days, you really had to give a coach 3-4 years before you judge them, and I still think you sort of have to, and I think the contract in Michigan State speaks that you have to. I mean, they owe him so much money. You have a good coach right now, and are there questions whether they can lure top talent? Yeah, but that's a resource issue at this point, and so stir up your donor base, stir up everybody. Get it, start thinking in those terms. How can, what can I do for my program is what I would say. What do and that's any college football program. You're a part of this. You create the tone, and obviously the big donors are the key. And it's not a sustainable situation there. But we don't know what this is going to look like a year from now. This is a really tricky situation, and you have a good coach. And I would just say you should probably get on board and give him a chance before you react to what a 17-year-old does or doesn't want to do. I see people online saying, there's just no excuse for this. There are lots of excuses for this. I did a story on this about East Lansing kids who don't stay home at Michigan State when other kids, in mid-Michigan have, because they don't want to be close to home. And that's a real thing. That's a valid excuse.
You've seen it and done it around here.
What do you mean there's no excuse for it? There's absolutely a reason this sometimes happens. And maybe he'll still wind up back at MSU. Maybe MSU did a shitty job recruiting him. I don't know. But I'm just saying there are lots of reasons. And the reaction in June to a kid who does he's saying where he's going to go this May. It is, and so that is one possibility for where he may actually play college football at some point. But I would say it's only slightly better than anywhere else. It is not. There's no such thing as a commitment anymore. There should be no such thing in college football is caring about an announcement 7-8 months before signing day. And all right, that's my rant. All right. Appreciate all of you listening to my TED Talk. We'll be back Friday with your Groovy Donut Twitter questions. We appreciate John Niyo. We appreciate Front 43 and Cask & Company. CaskandCompany.com to make a reservation. Just swing on by. Absolutely love that place. They've been a long time supporter of ours. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Roof.